Imagine being told by a stranger that you have no future, just because of where you're from. What would you do? Would you believe them? Or would you fight to prove them wrong? This is the story of Trey Morgan, a young boy from the streets of Newark, New Jersey, who was destined for something much bigger than anyone ever expected. Something that would change the future of space exploration forever. From washing cars to sending a spacecraft to Mars, Trey's journey proves that no matter where you start, you have the power to reach the stars. This is not just a story about space. It's about defying the odds, pushing through every challenge and never letting someone else's doubt define your future. If you're inspired by stories of determination and perseverance, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories like this one. And don't forget to leave a comment below. What's the biggest challenge you've ever overcome? Let's talk about it. So, what happens when a young boy dares to dream beyond the streets of Newark? Stay tuned to find out. In the heart of Newark, New Jersey, Trey Morgan spends his childhood helping his father wash cars, dreaming of a future far beyond the gritty streets. When a cruel customer insults him, telling him he has no future, Trey is determined to prove him wrong. What begins as a quest to escape the limitations of his circumstances turns into an extraordinary journey through science, perseverance, and resilience. From building his first machines out of scraps to developing the navigation system for a Mars mission, Trey's path is defined by quiet ambition and the relentless pursuit of his dreams. In this story, Trey's determination shatters expectations, proving that no matter where you start, the stars are never too far to reach. With themes of humility, the power of words, and the impact of giving back, When the Stars Answer Back is a powerful reminder that sometimes, the greatest journeys begin with a single moment of defiance. Will Trey's childhood dreams guide him to the stars, or will the weight of the world's expectations hold him down? Listen on to discover the inspiring tale of a boy who never gave up on his future, even when others did. In the iron-gray mornings of Newark, the streets hummed with movement long before the sun stretched its arms over the skyline. It was the kind of city that never stopped grinding, where the sound of tires rolling over wet asphalt mixed with the hiss of early buses and the echo of shop shutters rattling open. Among it all, Trey Morgan rose before dawn. Trey was 12, thin as a line of chalk, and sharp as a snap of cold air in winter. His mother said he came into the world during a blackout storm, wide-eyed and silent, as if already calculating how to navigate darkness. Now he stood outside the back of their apartment, stuffing rags into a bucket filled with soapy water, his breath rising in soft clouds. Darnell Morgan, Trey's father, worked 3 jobs on paper but poured his heart into just one, their mobile car wash business. It was a patched-together operation, an old van with a busted radio, a few battered signs, and more determination than equipment. But it paid just enough to cover groceries and keep the lights on. They worked together on weekends, father and son, moving from block to block. Darnell scrubbed with rhythm and pride, as if each streak of grime he wiped clean was one less burden on his boy's back. Trey mimicked him closely, learning the right pressure, the fast flick of the wrist, the importance of corners where dirt liked to hide. He didn't mind the work. What bothered him more were the stares. Some people looked straight through him. Others gave the kind of half-smile you reserve for stray dogs, a mix of pity and mild discomfort. Trey noticed it all, tucked it deep inside where he stored things he didn't know what to do with yet. One Saturday morning, the Morgan van pulled up to a street lined with sharp lawns and symmetrical homes. The kind of place where the houses looked like they had been pressed from a mold and the sidewalks didn't dare crack. A tall man in a navy blue sweater stood outside his luxury car, arms crossed, watch gleaming like a badge of arrival. Darnell greeted him with his usual warmth. "Morning, sir. We'll have her gleaming like new in no time." The man nodded, barely glancing their way. He leaned against a column and pulled out his phone, scrolling with his thumb. Trey went to work, hose in hand, watching how the water traced the curves of the silver Lexus. He liked how the reflections bent and danced in the puddles. Sometimes, if he focused hard enough, he could almost pretend the hood of the car was the surface of another planet. Then it happened. As Darnell moved around to the back of the vehicle, the man muttered without lifting his eyes, "Keep scrubbing, kid. Ain't no future in that bucket." The words dropped like a stone into Trey's chest. His hand froze. He stared at the water dripping from the sponge in his grip. He felt heat behind his eyes but blinked it away quickly. Darnell heard it too. He didn't say a word, just kept wiping the taillight with a calmness that felt louder than any argument could. Trey wanted to say something, anything, but his throat had sealed itself shut. They finished the job in silence. Back in the van, with the tools packed and the heater sputtering warm air through the vents, Darnell finally spoke. You got two choices, Trey. You can carry that comet like a curse, or you can turn it into rocket fuel. Trey didn't answer right away. He stared out the window at the street they were leaving behind, where the sun was just beginning to catch in the dew. Rocket fuel, he whispered. Darnell glanced at him and smiled. Good choice. The ride home was quiet, except for the hum of tires and the faint sound of jazz playing from the glove compartment radio. But something had shifted in Trey. Something quiet and unshakable had rooted itself in him. That night, under the dim ceiling light in their living room, Trey pulled out a library book on astronomy. He traced the pictures of stars with his finger, lips moving as he read aloud facts about galaxies, thrust, and orbital velocity. The world outside their apartment was still cold and dismissive. But inside his mind, planets spun, rockets soared, and equations sang like lullabies. Somewhere out there, a red planet waited, and one day Trey would speak back to the stars. He just didn't know how loudly yet. Years rolled by in Newark like freight trains, loud, fast, and rarely slowing down. Trey Morgan learned to move with that rhythm. After school, while other kids played ball in the alley or clustered around convenience store stoops, Trey disappeared into the back room of the library or hunched over the dining table, solving equations in silence. Darnell supported him the best he could. He worked longer shifts and brought home stacks of used textbooks from a friend who tutored at a community college. Their apartment wasn't much, 2 rooms stacked with love and necessity, but it had one thing money couldn't buy: belief. Darnell believed in Trey like people believe in sunrises. By the time Trey reached high school, he had a notebook filled with sketches, rockets, circuits, code flowcharts scribbled between geometry homework. He carried it everywhere, pressed against his chest like armor. Some kids mocked him for it. One called him Professor Buckethead in front of the whole cafeteria. Trey didn't flinch. Not anymore. He had already learned how to convert insults into acceleration. In 11th grade, he stumbled into the school's robotics club after seeing a flyer on a bulletin board. The club had only 4 members and equipment that looked like it belonged in a junkyard. But the moment Trey picked up a soldering iron and attached a wire to a circuit board, something clicked. Not just the machine, his purpose. He started staying after school, long after the sun had dipped behind the rooftops. His math teacher, Mrs. Delgado, noticed. She was one of the few who saw the fire behind his quiet nature. One day, she walked up to him in the hallway and said, "You ever think about engineering?" Trey blinked. Every day. That year, she helped him apply to a statewide STEM competition. He entered with a hand-built navigation prototype for a lunar rover. The frame was pieced together from recycled parts. A broken radio, old printer motors, salvaged wheels from a toy store dumpster. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. And when he demoed it, jaws dropped. He didn't win first place, but he did walk away with something better. A contact card from a Rutgers recruiter who saw something far more important than polish. He saw promise. Back at home, Darnell framed the certificate of participation like it was a Nobel Prize. He hung it above the couch, next to a photo of them washing a car together. Same Lexus. Same street. Trey didn't ask him why he chose that photo. He already knew. Senior year brought its own set of challenges. College applications were another language. Deadlines crept like shadows. Money was tighter than ever. Some nights, Trey went to sleep on an empty stomach so there'd be enough for his mother's medication. But he kept going. Then came the letter. It arrived in a white envelope with a crimson seal. Trey didn't open it right away. He held it in his hands for hours, his fingers tracing the ridges of the paper like it might vanish if he blinked. Finally, he tore it open. Full scholarship. Rutgers University. Aerospace engineering program. Trey sat down on the floor, letter in hand, the edges trembling. That night, Darnell brought home takeout from their favorite corner diner. Fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread soaked in butter. They ate in silence, tears glinting in their eyes, music low in the background. Afterward, Trey went out onto the fire escape. He looked up. The stars blinked faintly above the city haze like old friends. He whispered something beneath his breath. Not a wish. A promise. College was a different kind of world. Rutgers sprawled out like a kingdom of red brick and glass, filled with students who moved with certainty and spoke in confident tones. Trey arrived with a single suitcase, a recycled laptop, and the same battered notebook that had followed him since middle school. He walked the campus slowly, eyes wide, taking in the sleek labs and bustling lecture halls. Everything felt bigger than him. But he didn't let that stop him. In his first semester, he learned what it meant to be humbled by knowledge. Calculus hit like a freight train. Thermodynamics burned through sleep schedules. There were nights when Trey stared at code for hours, only to find a missing semicolon at dawn. While others seemed to float through the material, Trey had to grind for every inch. But he didn't quit. He never had. He found refuge in the engineering building, a concrete maze filled with buzzing machinery, humming monitors, and quiet minds like his. There, he discovered a lab focused on aerospace simulations, an elective most freshmen avoided. Trey signed up the second he could. Within weeks, he was staying long after class ended, running trajectory models and drafting mock re-entry paths for unmanned spacecraft. His professor, Dr. Asher Wells, was a man of few words and precise movements. Gray beard, quiet eyes. He noticed Trey early. The questions he asked, the notes he took, the way he stayed long after others left, fiddling with simulations until the janitors arrived. One evening, as the sun spilled orange through the windows and the last students packed up, Dr. Wells stood beside Trey, watching him troubleshoot a descent vector. "You think in orbits," he said. Trey looked up, startled. "Sir?" Dr. Wells pointed to the screen. "You're not just solving problems. You're predicting motion. That's the mark of someone who understands how space works." It was the first time someone said it out loud, what Trey always felt but couldn't name. The way he saw math not as numbers but as movement. The dance between force and silence. The arc of trust between gravity and flight. Wells invited Trey to apply for a summer program at the Johnson Space Center in Texas. The odds were slim. Thousands of applicants. Limited slots. But Trey worked through spring break perfecting his submission, building a digital simulation of an autonomous landing module. When he clicked submit, his hands were shaking. A month later he was on a plane. Houston was heat and sky and opportunity. The center buzzed with engineers, astronauts, and scientists who spoke in the elegant rhythm of possibility. Trey was assigned to a small team working on a new Mars mission. His task: optimize the navigation algorithms for a high-stakes landing sequence. The problem was brutal. One miscalculation and the whole vessel could miss the surface or crash on impact. Trey buried himself in equations, studying old mission logs, watching endless videos of past landings. Every number had weight. Every variable felt like a heartbeat. He lost track of time, missed meals, slept in his chair more than his bed. The team noticed. So did the lead engineer. One night, around 2 in the morning, the office was empty except for Trey and the hum of the air conditioning. He stared at the screen, red-eyed but focused, when something clicked. A refinement in the deceleration curve during the atmospheric entry phase. A shift so subtle, so precise it changed everything. He ran the sim. Then again. Then 20 more times. Success. Every time. He submitted the update with a trembling hand. The next day, the lead engineer called him into the conference room. "You stabilized a pattern we've been wrestling with for 6 months, she said. "How'd you figure it out?" Trey looked down, then up again. "I stopped thinking about it like a formula. Started thinking about it like a landing." Silence followed. Then a slow smile. "You just gave us a future." For the first time in his life, Trey felt it. Not just the dream. Not just the hunger. But the arrival. The launch was scheduled for October, and by then Trey Morgan's name was printed in the official NASA mission brief. It sat there in clean font beneath the words Primary Navigation Systems Developer, a title that still felt unreal each time he saw it. He didn't tell many people back home. Not at first. Not out of shame, but because he still wasn't used to the sound of his own success. He had always moved in silence, building, learning, adjusting. Now, his work was poised to guide a $500 million vessel across millions of miles of black space to a distant planet he once imagined from behind soap-smeared windshields. The day of the launch, Trey stood on the observation platform in Houston with the rest of the team. The rocket stood proud on the launch pad, a monument of fire and steel and ambition. As the countdown boomed over the speakers, Trey pressed a hand to the railing. 3, 2, 1. The sky tore open. The rocket leapt toward the stratosphere, trailing a ribbon of flame that outshone the sun. Cheers broke out around him, but Trey didn't move. His eyes followed it until it vanished, becoming a dot against the heavens. It would take months to reach Mars, months of calculations, course corrections, and telemetry reports. But when it arrived, his code would guide its descent. And it did. The night of the landing, millions tuned in to watch live. Trey sat in mission control, headset on, surrounded by murmurs and glowing monitors. Everyone was holding their breath. The red planet loomed large on the screen. Altitude, decreasing. Velocity, stabilizing. Error margin, near zero. The module began its descent, slicing through the thin Martian atmosphere with the grace of a ballet dancer who had trained for centuries. Trey's program adjusted every second, accounting for wind shear, terrain elevation, and signal delay. Each correction felt like a note in a symphony only he could hear. The room was so silent, Trey could hear his own heartbeat. Then, impact confirmed. Soft, safe. Exact coordinates reached. The room exploded into applause. People hugged. Some wept. Cameras rolled. A mission director grabbed Trey's shoulder and pulled him toward the press booth, already crowded with reporters from networks and newspapers around the world. The next evening, Trey appeared on national television for the first time. A special broadcast titled Red Horizons, The Journey to Mars. The set was minimalist, sleek and silver, with a backdrop of swirling stars behind him. Across from him sat the host, an elegant woman with a calm voice and sharp eyes. "Trey Morgan," she said. "You developed the navigation system that landed a vessel on Mars. That's extraordinary." Trey adjusted his collar. His suit was borrowed, tailored just enough to fit. But his voice was his own. "I just followed the math," he said. "The planet did the rest." She smiled. "Can you take us back to the beginning? Tell us where it all started." Trey paused. Then he spoke, not of launch pads and algorithms but of Newark. Of suds and cold mornings. Of the man with the Lexus and the voice that tried to seal his future shut. Of his father and their bucket, and how a single insult became a lifetime of motivation. "You don't need a telescope to see your future," Trey said. "You just need a reason to look up." The audience was quiet. The kind of quiet that holds reverence. Back in Newark, in the same apartment where it all began, Darnell Morgan sat in front of the old television. The framed certificate still hung on the wall. The photo of them washing that car had faded slightly. But his eyes were bright. He didn't need the screen to tell him who his son had become. He had always known. 2 weeks after the broadcast, Trey returned to Newark. Not for a press tour. Not for a university panel. Just to walk the old streets in silence. He stepped out of the rideshare car in front of the same faded brick building that had framed his childhood. The paint had peeled a little more. The mailbox still leaned sideways. But the air, it smelled the same. Like hot pavement, engine grease, and the faint sweetness of roasted nuts from the corner cart that never seemed to move. He carried nothing but a backpack and a folded envelope. Inside the apartment, Darnell greeted him with a quiet nod. They didn't embrace right away. They never needed to. Some relationships are carved so deep, words and gestures are just reminders, not revelations. "You eat yet?" Darnell asked. "Not since the airport," Trey said. Without a word, his father opened the fridge and pulled out 2 containers wrapped in foil. They sat on the worn couch, eating like they always had, close, quiet, grateful. Later that night, Trey walked to the old garage behind the building, the one where they stored the car wash supplies. He turned on the dusty light. The bucket was still there. So were the rags. The pressure hose hung on the wall like a coiled memory. He reached out, touched the bucket's rim. It was cracked now, rimmed with old soap stains. But it held weight. History. He knelt down, pulled out a screwdriver, and unscrewed the lid of a crate hidden beneath a tarp. Inside were the first scraps he ever built with. His earliest circuits, his first failed rover wheels, notebooks filled with messy equations and crude diagrams. He smiled. Then he took out a fresh notebook and began writing. Not blueprints. Not equations. A letter. The next morning he walked 2 blocks to the house where the Lexus had sat all those years ago. The neighborhood looked the same, though the lawns had shrunk behind newer fences and the once luxury car had been replaced by a modest sedan. Trey stood on the sidewalk, heart steady. He slid the envelope into the mailbox and turned away. Inside the envelope was a simple note. "You were right. There was no future in that bucket. So I built my own." Beneath the note, a glossy photo. A red planet in the distance. A small spacecraft resting on its dusty surface, lit by the rising Martian sun. And in the corner of the photo, in tiny script, "Navigation by Trey Morgan. Earth to Mars in silence and persistence." Trey didn't wait for a reply. He didn't need one. As he walked back toward the train station, kids passed him on bikes, bouncing basketballs, shouting into the sky. A young boy watched him from a stoop, eyes wide as he clutched a toy rocket made from painted soda bottles. Trey stopped and crouched beside him. "Want to know a secret?" he said. The boy nodded. "You can get all the way up there," Trey whispered, pointing to the sky. "Even if you start down here." The boy grinned, his grip tightening on the rocket. Trey stood up and walked on. The city moved around him, loud and alive. But he walked with the quiet confidence of a man who had made peace with his past and mapped his own trajectory. The stars above blinked like they were listening, like they remembered the boy who once spoke to them from a cracked sidewalk with soap on his hands. And now, finally, they had answered back. Weeks passed and Trey Morgan returned to work at the Space Center, but something had changed inside him. The software he wrote now moved with a different rhythm, less like a machine, more like a memory. His fingers carried the weight of Newark, the weight of stories layered beneath every line of code. He had become a symbol whether he wanted to be or not. NASA began inviting him to more interviews, panel discussions, and even schools, where children crowded around him with wide eyes and plastic models of Mars rovers. Teachers introduced him as the one who landed it. News outlets called him a navigation genius and a quiet trailblazer. But Trey knew the truth. Genius wasn't in the math. It was in the grit. In the years spent in the shadows, washing dreams off windshields and sketching hope on scraps. One afternoon he stood at the front of a high school auditorium in Newark, his image projected behind him, larger than life. He wore no suit, no tie, just a clean shirt and the calm expression of someone who understood his audience because he had once sat in their very seats. He looked out over the sea of students and told them a story, not about Mars but about soap and silence. About a boy with dirt on his fingers and numbers in his mind. About a bucket and a car and a stranger's voice that became a kind of fuel. Afterward, one student, a girl in oversized glasses with a spiral notebook clutched to her chest, approached him slowly. "I like stars too," she said quietly. Trey smiled. "Good. Keep liking them. They're listening." He stayed late that day helping a small group of students code their first robotic sensor. As they laughed and argued over wiring mistakes and debugging loops, Trey sat back, letting their energy fill the room. He realized that the future wasn't something he had to chase anymore. He had become part of it. Outside, the sky stretched wide and soft, a canvas waiting for new dreams. Back at the Space Center, new projects began. A second mission was in development, this time more ambitious, more complex. Trey was asked to lead a team of engineers, some older than him, some fresh from grad school. He carried the weight of leadership like he once carried water buckets, carefully, steadily. Late one evening, after everyone had gone home, Trey sat alone in the lab. On his screen glowed the new flight path, a tangle of curves and calculations. He stared at it for a while before reaching into his bag. He pulled out the original notebook, the one from years ago. Its corners were soft now, the paper smudged and worn. He flipped to a blank page and began sketching again. Not just formulas, not just code, but possibilities. He didn't know where the next mission would take them. Maybe to a new crater. Maybe to a moon. Maybe farther. But what he did know, what he believed with every fiber of his being, was that someone, somewhere, was watching. Maybe a kid with a soap bucket. Maybe a girl with glasses too big for her face. Someone who would see him and whisper, "Maybe I can too." And that would be enough. Spring returned to Newark like a promise fulfilled. Cherry blossoms cracked open on branches that once hung bare. The streets breathed with rhythm again. Music from passing cars, basketballs echoing off concrete, kids laughing beneath open windows. Trey Morgan stood on the rooftop of his childhood apartment building, the same rooftop where he once watched stars with a junkyard telescope and a notebook full of guesswork. The city stretched around him, glowing gold in the late afternoon sun. In the distance, the skyline shimmered like a dream only half awake. He held something in his hand, an invitation, thick paper with embossed lettering. The Presidential Science Medal Ceremony. Washington. Formal attire required. He'd be flying out in 2 days. There would be cameras, journalists, speeches, applause. His name would be read aloud beneath the marble dome of a national hall, and people would clap for the boy who once soaked sponges in a cracked blue bucket behind a rundown garage. But right now that didn't matter. He looked down at the neighborhood below. It had changed and had it. New murals covered old brick. The tire shop had a new sign. But the shadows cast by the buildings? Those hadn't moved in decades. Somewhere down there, a new boy, maybe just 9 or 10, held a rag and sprayed a car windshield while a father called out directions from the sidewalk. Trey watched as the boy moved around the car, serious and focused, not knowing the universe was already watching him. Trey smiled. Later that night, he sat across from Darnell at the kitchen table, eating stew from ceramic bowls and listening to jazz humming from the radio. His father had grown quieter with age, his steps slower, but his eyes, those remained unblinking, curious, proud. "You ready for the White House?" Darnell asked, spoon pausing midair. Trey shrugged. "It's just a building." Darnell chuckled. "So was the garage. Didn't stop you." They sat in easy silence. Then Darnell reached into a drawer and pulled out a small cloth-wrapped bundle. He placed it on the table. Trey opened it slowly. Inside was a badge. Tarnished bronze, round, with the faint etching of a rocket ship lifting into the stars. The edges were worn, the clasp bent. But Trey recognized it. His father's old keychain. The one he used to keep on his belt when they washed cars. Trey had forgotten about it. But here it was again, an orbit come full circle. "You earned this," Darnell said simply. Trey held it in his palm. It was heavier than it looked. That night, Trey couldn't sleep. He stepped outside into the alley behind their building, where the faucet still dripped, and the sidewalk still bore the faded stain of 1,000 rinse cycles. He stood there, under the same night sky that had once asked him questions he couldn't answer. Now he could. He pulled out his phone and aimed it upward. An app blinked to life, part of his own design, tracking real-time telemetry from the Mars lander still operating silently on the red planet. There it was. A glowing dot in the sky, orbiting, working, enduring, because he had sent it there. He turned slowly, looked at the old brick, the scuffed curb, the fire escape ladder that had once been his launch pad. He didn't feel like he had left this place behind. He felt like he had extended it. One orbit outward. One star further. One boy closer to believing it could be done again. And as the wind picked up, rustling leaves and dreams alike, Trey Morgan stepped forward, not away from where he began, but deeper into the purpose that had always been written in the silence between each heartbeat, and in the sky that never once looked away. The end. Moral lessons from When the Stars Answer Back. 1. Perseverance and resilience are the foundations of success. Trey Morgan's journey highlights the crucial role perseverance plays in overcoming obstacles. From his early days helping his father wash cars to developing the navigation system for a Mars mission, Trey faces numerous challenges. The most memorable of these is the insult from a customer who dismisses his future. Rather than letting this comment define him or derail his aspirations, Trey uses it as fuel for his determination. This story teaches us that setbacks, criticism, and even mockery do not have to define our future. The key is to maintain resilience despite all odds, and keep pushing forward. No matter how many doors seem to close or how many people doubt you, the act of pushing past those barriers with persistence leads to eventual success. Trey's ability to work through his struggles, instead of being discouraged by them, ultimately leads him to his groundbreaking achievements. The message here is clear. Success is built on resilience, and with time, effort, and unwavering determination, one can defy expectations. 2. Dreams should be nurtured, not just dreamed. Trey's dream of working in aerospace wasn't something he just casually imagined. It was a dream he actively worked toward, even when resources were scarce, and when his environment didn't seem conducive to big ambitions. As a child, he used the materials he had to sketch designs, build machines, and improve his understanding of the world around him. His dream was not simply a passive thought, but a call to action. This teaches us that dreams should be actively nurtured, even in the face of adversity. Dreaming is just the first step. The real challenge lies in working hard, taking the necessary steps, and making sacrifices to turn those dreams into reality. Whether it's learning new skills, taking risks, or putting in the hours when others give up, nurturing your dreams means doing the work to make them happen. 3. The power of humility and quiet confidence. Throughout the story, Trey's confidence isn't loud or boastful. It's a quiet confidence, grounded in hard work and knowledge. His humility is evident in the way he approaches challenges. For instance, when Dr. Wells compliments Trey for his ability to think in orbits, Trey doesn't boast about it but simply continues to work in silence, letting his actions speak for him. Similarly, after the Mars mission's success, Trey doesn't bask in praise but focuses on the journey and what lies ahead. This teaches us that true confidence comes not from external validation or loud declarations, but from an internal belief in one's own abilities and a willingness to let actions do the talking. Humility allows us to grow without becoming complacent or arrogant, while quiet confidence helps us navigate through life's challenges without needing to prove ourselves to others. 4. How one person's words can shape your future, for better or worse. The customer who insults Trey, telling him that he has no future, becomes a pivotal figure in the story. Although this person's words are hurtful, they also ignite something inside Trey. In that moment, Trey realizes that his future is not determined by someone else's opinion of him. It is something he must define for himself. This teaches us a crucial lesson. Words have immense power. They can either uplift or break a person, and we must be careful about how we use them. But we also have the power to reject the negative words of others and choose how to define our own path. Trey's story reminds us that even when someone's words seem crushing, they do not dictate our fate. We have the power to rewrite our narrative no matter how others see us. 5. The importance of giving back and inspiring the next generation. As Trey becomes successful and is recognized for his work, he doesn't forget his roots. Instead of getting caught up in the allure of fame and recognition, he takes the time to speak to the next generation, especially the children in his hometown. When he visits the high school and shares his story, he becomes an inspiration, showing young people that they too can reach the stars, regardless of where they come from. This highlights the importance of giving back to the community and inspiring those who come after us. Our success is not just for our own benefit but for the benefit of those who might be inspired by our journey. By sharing our experiences and helping others believe in their own potential, we contribute to a cycle of hope and progress that transcends generations. 6. Home is not a place, it's a foundation. Despite all his achievements and his work at NASA, Trey never forgets where he comes from. He returns to Newark, reconnecting with his father and the community that shaped him. His relationship with his father, Darnell, is a source of grounding, reminding him of his roots and the values that have always guided him. This lesson teaches us that while we might travel far from home in pursuit of our goals, our foundation, the values, lessons, and relationships we build early in life, remains a part of us. Home is not just a physical place but an emotional and spiritual anchor that provides stability and direction. Even as we grow and expand our horizons, we can always return to the things that have shaped us at our core. 7. The true meaning of success lies in impact, not recognition. As Trey walks through life, he faces numerous moments where external recognition is offered to him. He is invited to the White House, interviewed by the media, and celebrated as a hero. But for Trey, the true measure of his success lies not in the accolades, but in the lives he touches, the future he shapes, and the small boy with a toy rocket he inspires. Trey's success isn't about public acknowledgement or trophies on shelves. It's about making a meaningful impact that lasts far beyond the moment of recognition. He understands that the real legacy of success is not in personal gain, but in how we lift others up and contribute to something bigger than ourselves. These 7 moral lessons collectively reinforce the themes of persistence, humility, and the power of one individual's impact on the world. Trey's journey is a reminder that anyone, regardless of where they start, can overcome adversity, break through barriers, and inspire others to reach beyond their own limitations. Disclaimer: the story you are about to watch is entirely fictional. While the events and characters depicted in this video are not based on real-life individuals, the lessons, inspiration, and motivations conveyed are intended to inspire and encourage viewers. This story explores themes of perseverance, resilience, and the power of dreams, with the goal of offering valuable moral lessons and insights that can help guide you in your own journey. We hope it serves as a reminder that no matter where you start, you have the potential to reach great heights. Please note that this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. And so, Trey Morgan's journey comes full circle. From washing cars in Newark to charting the course of humanity's future on Mars, he proves that the sky is never the limit when you dare to dream and persevere. Remember, no dream is too big and no challenge is too great if you stay true to your path. Thank you for watching and listening to Trey's incredible journey. We hope his story inspired you as much as it has inspired us. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anyone who could use a little motivation in their life. There's more where this came from, so make sure to check out our other videos for more amazing stories, lessons, and inspiration. Let's keep pushing forward together. And as always, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and what you took away from the story. Until next time, keep reaching for the